Mary McCormick is an engineer and a PhD candidate in the Math, Science, Technology, and Engineering Education program at Tufts University. As part of the Integrating Engineering and Literacy project, funded by the National Science Foundation, Mary works with elementary and middle school teachers to craft engineering activities that foster critical thinking and problem-solving in reading and writing. This past November, Mary spoke at the annual ACE Critical Issues in Education Forum for Parents and Teachers. Afterwards, we had a conversation with Mary about her research project. Following are highlights from the conversation. Selected slides from Mary's PowerPoint presentation are included in this recording. Additional teacher resources and references are available at ace.salvereginablogs.com. Mary began the conversation with an explanation of the fundamental values of the project, particularly the belief that children quite naturally engage in engineering. Next, Mary explained the goals of the Integrating Engineering and Literacy Research Project, known as IEL Instruction.
Perfect. And the goal of the project that I work on is to help teachers find ways of integrating engineering into the ELA activities that they're already doing in a classroom. Only it just kind of changes, it has this little shift in a student's perception of what it is that he or she is doing. So if they're reading a book and the character in the book encounters a problem, it might be a great stopping point for the teacher to talk about what the problem is with the students, and if they were to act as engineers, either pretending to be the character in the book or acting as an engineer who is helping the character in the book, how could they solve that problem? What could they build? What are some of the things that they could use? What's available in the setting of the story? And so then kids are now going back and flipping through the text and trying to figure out more about the characters and investigating the setting and what resources they might be able to use to build something that will help the character solve this problem. And it's really fascinating to watch because it's no longer answering questions on a worksheet that say, talk about the setting, what is the plot, what are the major themes. Now students are really trying to understand the character. This is their engineering client. They're trying to understand the setting because this is the context in which the engineering problem is taking place. These are the constraints, these are the criteria, and the student now has this new goal to really balance these and to find an optimal solution for the character in the story. So the literacy is just embedded now in an engineering problem, and the students get very deeply engaged with the book, which is, I think, my favorite part. I love how excited they get and how they're analyzing characters and what they need and the social dynamics.
Mary told a story of fourth graders who integrated engineering considerations into the study of classroom literature.
Yeah, Michael, yeah. These two were so funny. We didn't notice them right off the bat. They're working, right now they're, in this slide that's shown, they're working on their design. And the premise is the book, The Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler. And in the Mixed Up Files, a boy and a girl, a brother and a sister, run away from their beautiful home in Greenwich, Connecticut. And they go and they hide out in the Metropolitan Museum in New York. And during that time, while they're hiding out, they encounter all sorts of problems. But one of the big things that happen is they find this mysterious statue that appears one night in the museum, and they really want to solve the problem of where did this statue come from. And the little boy and the girl, their names are Jamie and Claudia, decide that they will really be heroes if they can solve who created this statue. And then when they go home, they'll be more appreciated by their parents, and I won't give away the end of the book. But Harry and Michael decided that they really wanted to help Jamie and Claudia solve this angel statue mystery. So the statue is an angel. And so they started brainstorming and developing all these plans on how they could solve the mystery. And one of the things that came up was building a periscope. And when they're trying to figure out the real problem in the book, they started to come up with all these different ways of narrowing the problem space. So there's this really interesting thing that happens where the students are identifying constraints that are in the text of the book, really imagining themselves to be the young boy named Jamie who's in the museum, but they're also thinking about what are our constraints, what are the limitations, and what do we have available in this classroom that would enable us to build something. And so so they start really arguing it out in an extremely productive way where they're saying, well, it's going to take longer, and how would they get the wood? And then Harry says, well, I don't think it would be like, I don't think they have to pay for it. So what the boys are doing is they're saying, well, so the characters have this money. Let's think about exactly how much, what the financial status is of our clients, what they have available to them. Do they have wood in the museum? If not, can we procure this wood? How long is it going to take? All these engineering considerations are just spontaneously coming into play, and they're trying to figure out how this is all going to evolve. They're planning out how they're going to solve this problem. And I love this part in the slide that's shown now where they're assessing the feasibility in the text and in the classroom in that very dynamic balancing act. And the young boy on the right said, well, we can use wood, but just pretend it's cardboard. So he's saying, I understand that the wood is going to be the stronger structurally, the best structurally sound material that we can use to build this periscope, and certainly that will be more durable, but it really just doesn't make sense in the story, so we need to pretend at least it's cardboard so it makes sense, which is fabulous because they're just thinking, he's thinking more deeply, he's prioritizing what the characters have and less about what the actual classroom situation is. And on the next slide, I just outline these are the major engineering considerations, and these are how they're taking them into account in both contexts and trying to find this optimized goal, this optimization of a solution. So the structural soundness is going to be stronger, cardboard's a little flimsy, feasibility, it's going to take longer, but how would they get the wood? So all these different challenges that come in, and of course cost. And they're thinking Jamie is really cheap. That's never explicitly stated in the text, but they've gathered this information from reading the book and now have labeled Jamie as being cheap, which is very accurate, but it's just, it always makes me wonder how students, if they're writing a book report, like would these same very deep, kind of complex ways of characterizing what's happening in the story, we're less emphasizing what particular items they need to meet, what particular bullets, but now we're thinking about how students are understanding what it is that they're reading, and I think that these types of projects, they foster this development for students who aren't necessarily the ones who are comfortable or drawn to or even able to really go in and do the typical type of classroom activity where they're answering the worksheets and going back and finding exactly these phrases and these words that describe the characters, but now they have a way of showing how much they understand the story, how much they care about the characters, and it's just like a new way of communicating what it is that they're learning. And I think for teachers that can be extremely beneficial because it helps them evaluate what students know already. And so the book, the little case that I just showed about Harry and Michael, the one who brought back the little boy on the right, Michael, who kept bringing them back to the literary setting, we found out later when we showed this this whole case to his teacher that he's actually dyslexic. And she got very emotional when she was watching it, and she just remarked, like, I had no idea that he was thinking at this level about the characters, and it was just kind of an amazing thing because all of a sudden it was this new way not only of teaching but of understanding what it is that her students are learning. Right. And I think that was extremely powerful for her, especially when it comes to these standards and thinking about other ways of assessing. This is a great ELA type of example because this word, we have a literacy specialist on this project, and she was in the classroom at this time too and recognized right away that the kids were coming up with their own way of defining inconspicuous. And this word inconspicuous had come up a couple of times while the teacher was doing a read aloud, and kids had stopped her and say, what does that mean? And they were confusing it and saying inconceivable, inconspicuous, and all of a sudden the real definition or how they were defining it sort of manifested itself across all of these different engineering projects. And as the students were evaluating each other in their own projects, this became a priority in what the project had to have because the two characters in the story had to stay hidden. And so one of the things that Harry and Michael made was that periscope. But as they were building it, Harry thought, well, the other thing is this kind of looks like a lunchbox. Look, if we put handles on it and we fold it up, then it will be he'll be secret and it'll be inconspicuous. And so the kids, when they were showing their project, the other kids started asking them questions. And that's where the next slide goes. And they came up with all these different ways of looking at the word inconspicuous, or not just the word, but the underlying meaning. So it has to be unseen, and they would say, well, it could be behind a statue, but you could still carry it like a lunchbox, meaning not only is it not visible, but even if it is visible, it's not noticeable, because the kids now, the kids meaning kids at the museum, would just think, oh, it's another boy who's on a field trip, or he's just going to see this statue. But people might not notice them, and it's not like it's against the law. So these types of projects, again, are another way of not only teaching, but helping students learn and assessing what they are learning, their literacy.
Designing, implementing, and evaluating IEL instruction in classrooms is an ongoing project giving rise to innovative teaching ideas. For more information about this or other ACE educational initiatives, including teacher professional development, teacher grants, March into Reading, and the Pell Center Student Congress for ACE secondary students, contact Kitty Rock at rokk@salve.edu.